Wingman Joker, thank you for listening to this channel and please support the channel. Please subscribe. Chapter 271, The Nutcracker in Action. Now that I am already here, how about you bring my other servants too? I don't have all day, Victor said as soon as Margaret questioning finished. That's possible, the general said as he looked at the old man Elton, who nodded just as a soldier entered the tent in a hurry and then gave a piece of paper to the general. What? The general exclaimed after reading a few lines, then looked at Victor with disgust. He always felt that he had seen him somewhere. Is there anything wrong? Elton asked, making the general give him the paper before turning to leave the tent. They have just finished the background check on Victor. Elton frowned deeply as he read the data, then glared at Victor. Let's get on with this, he spat, squinting his eyes. He was wondering about the toys in the ring for a while now, seemingly they were genuine. What a pervert, ellipsis. So one by one the girls entered the tent for the debriefing. The first one was Lily, who made sure to appear as miserable as possible as she told them everything from finding the injured Mina until stumbling upon the Nutcracker trail of destruction at the garden. She didn't have to lie until that point. What did you do after that? The searchers who were doing the questioning asked. I found a few marks in the trees and following them, I met with the young master who was with Mana and two other girls. She didn't really lie but chose her words very carefully. Just that. You did nothing else until the dungeon ended. The young master ordered the girls to go upstairs. The Nutcracker was in the woods, it was very dangerous. I was ordered to remain at the garden level, to keep an eye on the Nutcracker's activities, she said with an aggrieved look in her eyes. Still not technically lying, she had been keeping an eye on her Nutcracker young master all this time. Alone, Elton interjected. Yes, she said after hearing an entirely different question. Did you see the final battle? Elton asked again, making her pause. No, where were you at that time? She paused for a second, having a bath. Did you stay there until the end? The sergeant this time asked. Yes, she answered again truthfully to a totally different question. Then we are finished with you. I need to see your face. Elton suddenly interrupted, making Lily frown, then nod after getting her young master's consent. She slowly lowered her veil, revealing a face that even her mother would not dare to kiss. Okay, put it back on, Elton said with a disturbed expression. Next was Mina, who told the same story Lily did, except when she said that she went upstairs after the young master ordered the retreat. Her story was very credible, especially with her missing hand. Mana on the other hand completely skipped the story of how Harvey captured her. She told a fabricated story about how she first met the two beggar sect girls who were in the woods and then met Victor after that by chance. Victor had already trained them beforehand just in case. He was expecting worst-case scenarios because of the misfortune curse. Is that all? Elton asked, feeling that she was hiding something. Yes, she paused for a second. You can ask the two beggar sect girls too. They were there with me, she said. We will question them when it is their turn. The sergeant said sternly. I think you should question them in my presence. Victor suddenly interrupted. Those girls are now mine, I should witness their debriefing too. A servant relationship should be official in order to. Elton scolded but was interrupted by the two ownership contracts Victor showed. They were signed with blood. Those two girls were so scared of the Nutcracker that they offered their bodies to me in exchange for protection, he said, making Elton curse and order a soldier to prepare the girls for interrogation too while silently cursing. This young master was really evil, he thought. Fine, let's continue the debriefing, the old sergeant said. He was getting tired after getting interrupted repeatedly. What happened after you met Victor? After that, Mana continued with the same story Mina told earlier, picking her world very carefully. The two beggar sect girls, who were brought in seconds later, also said the same things with minor variations that Victor added here and there to make it more realistic. They all said that their young master told them it was too dangerous and ordered them to escape to the upper floor. When they were asked if Victor escaped with them, they all heard a question of whether they were biologically female and answered with a yes and a blush. After finishing with all the statements, all of the storage rings the girls had were checked one by one. Of course, nothing of value was found, just a lot of gems and a few B and C ranked artifacts. Are we finished here? Victor asked finally after he was questioned again in the presence of Elton. He appeared to be a little absent-minded, but little did they know that he was at the moment helping Lynn, who was getting debriefed. Yes, you may go, Elton said after looking at his report. Something was definitely wrong. His intuition was telling him that, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Victor, who was very cautious, nodded to everyone and then turned to leave when he was stopped by one final question. Do you know anything about the Nutcracker, other than what you told us? Elton asked, making Victor shiver. Please don't say his name like that out of the blue. What if he heard you and came here? Victor said, and no, I told you what I know. He added, how do you know its name? I told that pretty sergeant before, whenever he is around, you hear strange words like hail the Nutcracker, fear the Nutcracker. Victor whispered in a low voice. Good, Elton said, then gestured everyone out. Victor nodded, then exited the tent to meet with the girls who were waiting outside. Let's go back home, he said as they walked out, making sure to pass by the clearing where the players were waiting. He did that to send Rebecca, who was waiting, a message to go and hide in the ladies' room and then wait for his signal when he returned. Reaching outside of the camp and walking for 100 feet or so, Victor quickly found his car where Alex was waiting. She kept her hiding disguise when the dungeon was cleared and made her way out as soon as she regained consciousness. Although Tom and his party saw her inside, Victor could always claim that they saw someone else who died inside. And the council had no power outside the dungeon's perimeter anyway. If any of the Inquisitors were to recognize her as the Thunder Sect's young master, it would be a lot of mess. And Victor was not going to risk taking chances with her bad luck. Victor quickly hurried inside the car and lay with the girls at the back, then scolded poor Lily because she was slow. He ordered her to drive home. Alex, who was keeping her disguise, just in case, had to be pushed under the girls' feet to the car's floor. There were many sentries around after all. Ellipsis. When Victor returned to the camp 20 minutes later, he made sure to keep his disguise as he checked the tents one by one, then cursed. 3 of the 5 tents had Inquisitors with lie detection skills. This was a close call. If any of the girls made a mistake, he would have been in danger. Lynn had already ended her questioning and she was now on her way home. She told the story they agreed on with Zoe. And with Victor using his disguise skill through her, he made sure to cover her words when necessary. The only remaining variables were Rebecca and Zoe. Victor was considering drugging one of them to delay her debriefing, but thankfully, he watched Zoe enter one of the rooms so he quickly followed. Rebecca as a girl can take her time in the toilet. Zoe's story was the truth, of course. She even told them about Alex and how he ran like a maniac. This made Elton frown as he heard nothing of Victor's driver being in the dungeon. The true problem was when Zoe reached the part where she climbed to the garden floor. I met with Lynn there. She stopped talking, trying to keep her sentences as short as possible. She was not good at lying. And, she hesitated, we fought the beast. That idiot Alex seemed to be the one who woke it up. He confessed after getting his ass kicked, we were in a really bad situation. Oh, Alex had this sword hilt that he took when waking the monster. The moment I held it, it changed into an ethereal sword. The monster exploded as soon as it touched him. She said, that's it. Yes, she answered the question of whether she was a girl. You mean you were the one who cleared the dungeon? Both Elton and the sergeant asked in astonishment. Not alone, but yes. Can I see the sword? Elton asked. Zoe hesitated for a moment, then took the sword hilt from her ring and handed it to him. He inspected it with a frown. Can you really activate this? He asked. Zoe nodded and touched the hilt, then focused, making the ethereal blade appear again. I see, Elton nodded, managing to hide the greed in his eyes. Did that driver, Alex, survive? Elton asked finally. Of course not, she replied angrily. After another few questions, Zoe's interrogation ended. I need to know what your class is, Elton finally said after some hesitation. Oh, it is. Stop. A commanding voice sounded as an old man pushed his way into the tent, then punched Elton without saying another word. The poor Inquisitor tumbled to the floor with his hand over his stomach moments later. He almost fell on Victor's feet. Uncle Falcon, Zoe exclaimed, didn't I tell you to not reveal a thing? Falcon scolded her as he looked at Elton. Elton, it's been a while. Did you forget the lesson I taught you 20 years ago? Don't you know the rules? He asked as glared at the sergeant who was trying to call for help, making him fall to the ground in seconds. The smart man didn't faint but acted as if he knew his place. Elton spat blood then stood up slowly. Falcon, don't overestimate your power. You are no longer with the council. The brass had already requested that all relevant data shall be collected. The family would see to that, Falcon said as he grabbed the shocked Zoe's hand and then walked out. Victor, who was watching this, almost cursed loudly. What the fuck was wrong here? Why was Zoe's luck so good? She was truly a scion. Looking at the injured Elton who could barely throw himself into a nearby chair, Victor smiled, Sorry Uncle Falcon, you will have to take the blame for this, he said, adjusting his position to make sure that the sergeant who was still playing dead would be able to witness the Nutcracker in action. Ellipsis. Rebecca's turn came 3 hours later. There was a delay after some chaos ensued due to one of the high-ranking inquisitors getting kidnapped by some monster. Investigators found nothing but a hallucinating sergeant. There were talks about delaying the questioning, but after multiple complaints from the teachers, the questioning resumed briefly. Thankfully Rebecca didn't need Victor's help as the inquisitor who questioned her didn't have a lie detection skill. She told her story perfectly. Totally, skipping the part where she met Victor. At the end of the day, Victor was utterly exhausted as he sneaked out of the base. Using the disguise skill while on high alert was a very hard job. Too bad that his day was not over yet. He still had one very important thing to do. Ellipsis. What else did you reveal? Falcon asked in a tired tone as he inspected the sword hilt. He always knew that Zoe was lucky, but now he was suspecting whether she was a scion. Nothing. Victor had already instructed me. Oops. Victor. Falcon exclaimed. He mentioned nothing of this sort when she told him what happened earlier. Ah, please don't be angry, but it is like this. Zoe slowly began to speak. She chose to tell the truth this time. Falcon was like her father after all. I see. Falcon squinted his eyes after hearing the full story. His evaluation of Victor has just reached a new degree. You did well. Did that man Elton ask any questions about the family secrets? He asked. He had long suspected that Elton secretly worked for the Von Sway family when they worked together in the council forces. Too bad that before he could find sufficient evidence, Falcon, who was a commander back then, was kicked out because he helped Zoe's father escape. No, but he kept asking some very inappropriate questions. Zoe, who was totally unaware of some old secrets, said, puffing her cheeks. Inappropriate, like, ah, she blushed. He asked if I had any STDs. He also asked if I was a virgin, and if I would like to sleep with him, she whispered shyly. That bastard, Falcon flared. I will make sure to break his balls the next time I see him. Too bad, Falcon had no idea that the Nutcracker had already done that. Tom, you are amazing. How did you manage to hide your storage ring? Peter asked as he walked out of the camp with Tom, Madeline, and 2 other girls who had just become Tom's new lovers. This is one of my secret skills. Tom said smugly, silently praising the system for helping him hide his ring, which contained not only his but his group's entire loot. Let's go party, Madeline said, winking at Tom in the process. Yes, Tom. A shout made them stop. It was teacher Isabella who finally managed to finish the mountain of paperwork she had to do. Teacher, Tom said nervously. Are you okay? She asked. She was planning to go search for him in the dungeon, but it was cleared before she could manage to reach the lower floors. Thankfully he survived. Yes, he said nervously. He didn't want his friends to know that he was banging the teacher. Not yet anyway. I will not be able to attend the private lesson tonight. Maybe we can arrange it tomorrow? He asked. Oh, yes, she said seriously, hiding her blush. See you then. A friend of mine wants to meet you though, so can you come a little early? Of course, he said with a dashing smile. I am very happy that you survived too, teacher. He said, making her nod, then turn and return to the camp. She still had work to do. Let's go have a bite, Tom told his friends as he chuckled, making Peter, who totally notices the chemistry between his teacher and best friend, almost burst out cursing. Why can't he have a girlfriend like this womanizer? He tried to approach some girls from the normal class in the academy, but those girls were too smart for him. Warning. The Nutcracker is approaching. It is targeting you. It will kill anyone who stands in its wretched way. Run and survive. Survival probability 11.14%. A sudden warning caused Tom to stop walking. What? Peter asked. I need to go fetch something. Why don't you guys go open a room in the Blackfish bar? I will catch up with you later, he said as he began to run off the road. Where are you going? Shall I come with you? Madeline asked, thinking that this was one of their usual games. No, I am good, he said as he began to run faster, totally ignoring the strange look in his friend's eyes. He ran and ran, purposely choosing to go off the main road. The dungeon was in a remote mountainous area anyway. System, did I lose him? Warning, it is here, it is too late to run. Praise the Nutcracker. May it have mercy on your balls. *T. Tom cursed and wanted to turn and run again, but suddenly he lost all the power in his body. He just collapsed to the ground, totally unable to move. The world slowly turned dark around him. In his mind, he could hear many howling overlapping voices. Hail the Nutcracker! Praise the Nutcracker! Fear the Nutcracker! A demon soon appeared walking out of the darkness. It was a tall muscular humanoid creature. It had 2 long black horns, 2 long wings, and white hair that covered a pitch-black face. Only the eyes were shining with a red ominous light. It opened its wide mouth revealing its sharp teeth then howled as it reached him. It was planning to eat him. Tom could see the hunger in its eyes. He wanted to move or use his skills, but he failed. His body was not responding. Suddenly a blue screen appeared in front of Tom. It was the system defending him, he could see it from the back. The Nutcracker who was preparing his meal paused as he read the ancient letters engraved on the blue screen. He sighed then looked at Tom with admiration. Chosen one, I cannot kill you. However, the ancient pact must be upheld. And worthy offering is a must. With that, the Nutcracker reached for Tom's finger, making the hidden ring appear again. Under Tom's astonished eyes, the demon simply unlocked the ring and then began to browse through it, taking out treasures one by one. Thankfully it stopped after taking 3 artifacts that Tom didn't recognize and was planning to get appraised later. The Nutcracker threw the ring back at Tom, then began to laugh crazily as it vanished. Minutes later Tom could move again. He just sat there questioning life. What the hell was that thing? Why did his pants feel wet? Mission complete. Congratulations on surviving an encounter with the Nutcracker. The reward had been issued. Chapter 272, Mission. It was a couple of hours before dawn when Victor finally reached his mansion. That bastard Tom sure knew how to run, but the Nutcracker caught with him eventually. No one could escape from his clutches. Victor casually greeted the 2 chicks dressed in suits who were guarding the front gate then walked in. He noticed that there were quite a few cement bags here and there in the front yard, proof of recent construction works. It seemed like Hilda had already started renovating the basement. Entering the mansion, Victor was immediately assaulted by Lily, who was of course the only one waiting for him. She hugged him hard. Did the girls go to sleep? Victor asked after he dragged his body and hers, which was now glued onto him, to the study. He just threw himself on the leather chair and relaxed. He was utterly exhausted. They were tired after all the stuff that happened in the dungeon and the interrogation yesterday. Hilda wanted to wait for you, but I told her to go get some sleep, Lily said as she adjusted herself on his lap as if this was the most natural thing to do. She put her head on his chest, relaxing to the sound of his heartbeats. She was feeling very frustrated because she wasn't of any help in the dungeon. That vixen Lynn was more helpful than her. Even that idiot Alex played a role. Name: Lily von Krona. Level: 33. Titles: Greater than Hero Party Member. Defeat a boss as a part of the Heroes team. Closing parenthesis. Status: Authority: 5. Health 15-10-15-10. Stamina 15-20-15-20. Mana 920-920. Strength 100. Agility 102. Intelligence 92. Luck 13. Charm 52. Order points: 79. Class: Shadow Dancer. Subclass: None. Class skills: Area Inspect, S. Shadow Cloak, A. Mesmerizing Dance, A. Recognized skills: Cleaning, B. Pain Tolerance, B. Seduction, C. Sixth Sense, D. Gourmet, F. Sword Arts, E. Dagger Arts, E. Needle Arts, E. Movement Arts, E. Martial Arts, E. Acting, F. Poison Brewing, F. Hiding, F. Lying, F. Evading, F. Quick Reading, F. Dismantling, F. Poison Resistance, F. Bleeding Resistance, F. Mace Arts, F. System Skills: Penetrating Dagger, A. Air Slash, AWIND. Quickstep, B. Eidetic Memory, A. Super Enhanced Senses, A. Health Regeneration, E. Lie Detection, F. Enhanced Senses, F. Magic Affinity, Wind, Bloodline. Crowned Crow SS 49% Awakened. Fate Strength, E. Defined Fate, None. Destiny List less than 10 order points to unveil greater than. Equipment: The Soul Pearl of Io, SSS. Blood Gem Storage Ring, S. Defense Talisman, A. Levitation Necklace, A. Hidden Silk Armor, C. Trusty Hidden Dagger, E. Victor sighed as he watched her attributes. She gained a lot in this dungeon as part of the team who took out the boss. She even got a magical affinity. Unfortunately, although both Victor and Zoe were holding the sword that delivered the final strike, the system had given most of the express points to Zoe. She was now at level 110. Her authority had even risen to 13. The family would surely be having a celebration at the moment. That's if Falcon allowed her to tell the truth. Victor only managed to raise a handful of levels, while Lynn and Lily got to raise by 30 or so. This was to be expected though. The Scion always got the largest piece of the pie. Even that stupid Tom got to level up by 20 levels. That's how the world worked. It was totally unfair. Is there anything wrong, young master? Lily suddenly said, startling him. Oh, why are you saying that? He asked, raising his eyebrow. Your heart is telling me, she said. It usually beats smoothly when I am near you, but today it sounds troubled, she said, making Victor sigh. This girl was getting more and more sensitive as her level grew and her blood awakened. Don't worry about it, it is just that everything happening recently is very troubling, he said but didn't elaborate. For the last 2 months, he was running around without rest. Now he had a shitload of problems that he had yet to decide how to solve. The first one was Nova. That girl was a time bomb, he knew that. If he gave her to Tom, she would definitely end up dead one way or another. Destiny does not lie. Victor was conflicted about whether to just send her to her death or use her. Tom, who was psychologically scarred after he met with the Nutcracker, was at the moment busy getting healed by his teacher. In the morning he would surely hear about the wedding though, and would surely begin to cause problems. That was another dilemma that Victor needed to fix. After that, there was trouble with Alex. Victor was initially thinking of finding a way to clear the fate that caused her to be a dark Scion. But there was no fate like that. The world was after her because she was a princess from a very strong alien race. This painted a huge target mark on her sorry butt. There was also a myriad of troubles ranging from the Dark Chamber to the Fate Sect. There was also that Caspian of the Heavenly Sect who would definitely appear at the wedding. Victor didn't expect that changing his destiny just a little would cause all sorts of echoes. The biggest trouble of all was Lily. She would have to leave him sooner or later, he knew that. He could try hiding her, but that would not be good for her. She needed to be baptized in her family. But after that, he was wondering how to take her back. Her family would surely value her a lot, but she would also have to face a lot of enemies from within. With the purity of her bloodline, she would be a candidate to hold a very prestigious position in the von Krona family, and some parties would not like that at all. He knew that well after living in the shadow of the royal family in his past life. No matter what, she was destined to rule the world. No wonder that Scions kept popping up like mushrooms. It had nothing to do with him, it was just that their fates were dragging them to worship their ultimate mistress. Being with Lily had proved to be a very dangerous position. Far more dangerous than Alex and Nova. Victor frowned, wondering what he should do. If only he could manage to be like Caspian with his deep background, von Krona would surely welcome him as a son-in-law, though reluctantly. Wait, he smiled in a very evil way. What if he did that? It would be dangerous. Very dangerous. But with his current skills, it was possible. He would be able to move many elements. He might need to collect a few things though. He might get a chance at the wedding. He might even be able to solve Nova's problem once and for all. A new very evil plan sprouted in Victor's mind. Young master, what are you thinking about? Lily asked as she saw the wretched smile on his face. Nothing, just thinking about our wedding night, he lied, making her blush heavily as she buried her face in his chest. Pervert young master, she mumbled as she hugged him harder, making him slowly pat her head and kiss her forehead. A phone rang, breaking the romantic atmosphere. It was Theodore, Victor's father. Victor gave Lily a troubled look and then answered. Father, I am. Shut up you piece of sh*t. Do you know how much mess I went through to clean that stinky ass of yours? If you want to satisfy your fetishes, do it privately next time. Theodore scolded. He had just finished cleaning the brothel scandal. Sorry. Victor was really awkward. He couldn't tell his father about Alex, as that would raise more questions. No, you are not. Anyway, don't worry about it. We used AI to replace all the videos online with similar ones but featuring another guy. The world now thinks that you were misidentified, be careful next time. Theodore sighed. This cover-up had cost him a lot of money and favors. It also cost the 20 journalists, who refused to cooperate, their jobs. They were now at the bottom of the ocean having intimate conversations with the sharks. Oh, okay. Victor already knew that his father would clean his ass. In his previous life, there was a similar accident with his half-brother John. But it involved S's instead of grannies. I managed to fool your mother this time, so don't tell her anything. The poor lass almost had a heart attack. Quote, Tell her I said hi. I will. Now, how was your dungeon raid? Didn't you already read the report? No, Falcon had seemingly killed the Inquisitor who questioned you and then grabbed all the reports. Although he denied it, we know that he did that to protect Zoe's secret. What a good man. Will he be alright? Victor asked with a troubled look. It was he who stole the reports. He had already sent them to Alpha to go through them and search for any interesting things. He will be questioned later, but as long as there is no evidence, no one can pin anything on him. Now, about the dungeon. Are you okay? Yes, perfectly fine. One of my maids lost a hand, but that's it. That's a very good result for an S dungeon. You guys were lucky Zoe was there. Did you level up? Yes, I am now at 33. I see. What? *T. Even you. Zoe is already at 45. Theodore was shocked. He was currently at level 57, but when he was Victor's age he was only at level 14 or 15. He was not sad though, he was extra glad. Victor had proved to be as good as Mike, who was at level 40 the last time he checked, and Alice was at level 37. He was suspecting that this had something to do with Alina, as his sons from his other wives were still at level 20. Maybe he should try to get another child with her. Yeah, I got lucky. Victor, who didn't know what his perverted father was thinking, replied. Lucky my ass. You just rubbed some of Zoe's luck. Did you get any good loot? Yes. Good, keep it a secret. Theodore said. Unfortunately, the Von Sway had put their hands on the dungeon. Seemingly they owned the land around it, but didn't know it. He said with a sigh. I see. Victor squinted his eyes. This definitely had something to do with that necromancer, Gustav. Now, according to the regulation, I will need you to come to the family island for an assessment to mark your progress. But you can do that after the wedding. Maybe at your grandmother's wedding. Wedding? Did I say wedding? No, I meant her birthday. Oh, wasn't it cancelled? Victor asked. We will be doing a small gathering, nothing major. The elders can't stop this. I understand, I will be there. Anything else? Yes, as you might know, your cousin Titus used to be the manager of Vane City. That position has been transferred to you after his incident. The procedure with the council had been finalized 3 days ago. So you need to do missions for the council and the family as the manager of Vane City from now on. Oh right, I almost forgot about that. Victor frowned. This was a little troublesome. Good, most of those things are random and can be delegated to your men. I sent Kai the details, just call him and ask. I will. Now, there was something else. I already prepared the wedding venue in the White Grand Hotel. This is an important event, so it will be managed by the family. Just make sure to pass by and check if things are to your liking. I understand. Victor nodded and then said goodbye to his father before ending the call. Is everything okay, young master? Lily asked. More trouble, he said as he called Kai, who took a while to answer. Young master, Kai yawned. He was asleep. Are there any missions for me? Victor asked directly. Ah yes, there were 3, 2 of them were just routine checks, which have already been fixed remotely by me. The last one is a little troublesome. It comes from the council. I will send it to you directly, Kai said. Okay, good, anything else? No, Victor hung up imminently and then looked at the message Kai sent. Council mission, rank E, urgent. Location, Wyron Principality, Vane City. Jurisdiction, Vane von Weiss. Manager, Von Weiss, Victor Elite. On 24/6 there was an incident in the slums of Vane City. 9 men aged 17 to 21 were burnt alive. Their initial tests suggest the use of otherworldly electric energy with an unknown signature. Witnesses had sighted a girl running away in the perimeter. No security footage was recorded due to the location's circumstances. Suspected, unregistered players with a power level of 15. Mission, identify and locate the rogue player. Integrate or eliminate. The Players Council, Players Management, Players Crimes Office. Director, Azana Triple Gold. Victor frowned as he showed the message to Lily. Let me do it, she said. She wanted to prove herself. No, I will do this myself, he said. Lily was not suitable for such missions. The Players' Council usually left the mission to uphold the rules and the status of secrecy to the managing players in the areas where they don't have a local office. So there was nothing strange about this request. When players got discovered, the council usually would send someone to register them and explain the rules to them. After that, if they were deemed powerful, they would usually offer them a chance to join one of the powers. They can't force them though, this was one of the rules of the council. In fact, this was how many family heirs built their focus. They found those loose awakened players and then offered them a lot of benefits, employing them into their own teams, the same way Victor employed Margaret initially. The only exception to this was when newly awakened players commit crimes using their powers or undermining the status of secrecy that the council supervised. In that case, not only would they lose their freedom, they would only have two choices: to join one of the families or get wiped out. This case was a good example of such circumstances. Victor had never heard about this in his previous life, as he was just a random pawn at this period of time. But the words, electrical energy, reminded him of a certain incident that would happen about 4 months from now. It was a massive blackout during a thunderstorm. Back then he remembered accidentally meeting his father who was in town. Theodore was injured back then, but he said nothing when Victor asked him about it. Could it have something to do with this? No matter what, he planned to see to this in a couple of days when he went to check on the wedding venue. He was too lazy for this now. Today he just wanted to relax and check his loot. Chapter 273, Puppets. Victor casually took out 3 treasuries from his ring and put them on the table as Lily, who was still on his lap, watched. Are those from the dungeon, young master? Yup, I got a good dog to fetch them for me. Victor said as he drooled. He had other things too, but they were not as precious as those. What are those? Lily asked as she took a handkerchief and carefully wiped his mouth. First of all, Victor said as he held a black little box, about an inch tall. This is called the Light Eater box. It is an S-ranked artifact. When this box opens, it absorbs all the light in the area around it, leaving it pitch black. Even with a strong flashlight, you would only be able to see 2 feet ahead. He said, its range depends on how much energy you can supply it. On the 6th floor of the dungeon, this was used as a part of an array to cause the entire floor to grow very dark. He added, too bad that stupid greedy dog didn't stop to study the formation below it as he destroyed everything to snatch the treasure very quickly. The whimsical system had no time to warn him. Victor still managed to get a glimpse of it though, but he would need time to study it and maybe fill any damaged parts. Oh, can I have it? Lily asked with a pleading look. This thing would help her to kill and castrate a lot of poor souls. Yes, but be careful though, if the area you are trying to block is too bright, this thing would not work, it might even be damaged because of all the energy it would be absorbing. Victor warned as he gave it to Lily. Don't use it now, I don't want to alarm the entire mansion. He scolded when he saw her try to open it. Ah, sorry, she said as she put the box in her storage ring. She would try it later to startle the sh*t out of Margaret. Next we have this, Victor said as he grabbed a jade key. This is the second one I have got, he said, taking out the one he grabbed from Sebastian earlier and putting them together. They were very similar except for the symbol on its head. Each symbol represents a number. Victor got numbers for Sebastian's and 177 Tom's. Victor was not sure what those meant though. What does this open? Lily asked. A door obviously, he answered, making her pout a little. Don't worry about it. In the right time, you will know, he added, rubbing her hair. It was too early to tell the girls about the Jade Gate, he would have time for that after the tournament. Lily frowned, but could only hold her curiosity for now. Finally, is this? Victor said, showing Lily a block of silvery metal. He looked at it with very greedy eyes and drooled again. This thing was inside the casket of the Lich King. The casket was scrapped but this didn't even get a scratch. Will you tell me what this is? Lily asked. She was still pouting. If I do, you will take it away from me, he said, carefully caressing the block as if it was a naked girl. I promise I won't, she said casually. She was beginning to really suspect the possibility that her young master did suffer from some brain damage in the dungeon. He got blown away by a lot of explosions lately. She would love him regardless though. This is called Hell Iron. It's not iron though, but people use that name for it. As its name implies, it is a type of metal that only appears in Hell, the main world of the demons. Victor said, it is super rare. This metal block is extra large. What can it be used for? Lily asked. Is it like those very strong fantasy metals in stories? She was tempted to take it from him. Not exactly, it is strong, but there are much stronger metals. This one is special, it. Suddenly, a knock on the door startled him. Come in, he said before a pretty girl in red pajamas walked in. It was none other than Margaret who seemed to be quite awake. Good morning, she said as closed the door behind her. She casually inspected Lily's ambiguous position as she walked in, then sat on a chair near the desk, stretching her legs on the coffee table to the side. "Did you just wake up?" Victor asked. "Yup, I knew you would be late flirting with some hooker, so I went to sleep as soon as we got here," she said, yawning and totally ignoring Lily's threatening glares. Sadly, there were no hookers this time, just a stupid dog. "What exactly happened in the dungeon?" Victor asked. He didn't have the opportunity to ask her. "As I said in the debriefing, I was transported to this strange vault. It was just full of treasures, and there was that stupid gay door that refused to budge." Margaret slowly began to tell him exactly what happened, from entering, till she defeated that demon soul. She didn't mention anything about what happened next. She planned to tell Victor about it privately later. "Oh," Victor frowned after hearing her story. "Are you guys checking your loot?" she asked as she saw the things on the table. Her eyes sparkled when she spotted the metallic brick that looked very familiar. "Yes, there are other random things, but those things here are the really precious stuff," he said. "That brick, is it precious?" Margaret asked, squinting her eyes. "What does it do?" "Yes, I was just telling Lily. This thing is called hell iron. It has the power to conduct mana like copper conducted electricity," he explained. "What is that good for?" Lily didn't really understand. "Everything, basically. You can create tools that need mana to work with them. Something like magical tools, mana computers, and puppets," he said with a wretched smile as his eyes sparkled. "Are you going to build some kind of magical S*X robot with it?" Margaret asked as Lily looked at him coldly, not even bothering to wipe his drool this time. "It is called a puppet warrior." He didn't deny it, as he watched Margaret raise one eyebrow. "Would this thing be even enough?" Margaret asked again. "This might be sufficient for a," she paused, and pointed downward with a mysterious smile. "One block of metal is enough to create 5 full puppets. This metal would only be used as wires. I can use other materials for the other parts," he explained. "And, young master, what would this puppet warrior do exactly?" Lily asked very coldly as she looked very dangerously at the block of metal. "Everything. It can even achieve humanly impossible positions," he said, teasing Lily. "It can fight. It would be perfect for dangerous missions." He quickly corrected himself, feeling the drop in the room's temperature. "I totally understand, young master," she said. She was clearly not convinced, and was definitely planning to assassinate this block of metal. "Don't worry, it can't move on its own. It would need someone controlling it. I will need some other precious metals to build it though, and it is not easy to build. I will need a good engineer," he explained. "How much is this thing worth precisely?" Margaret suddenly asked, liking her lips. "It depends. If you don't know how to use it, it's not that precious. But if you have the key technology, it is priceless. It can fetch 100,000 coins per gram. *T. She cursed. This was a very hot potato. "How much would you pay for those then?" Margaret said as she threw her ring at the table. Victor didn't have the chance to check it earlier. Victor grabbed the ring she placed on the table and began to inspect it. Then he froze. His mind simply stopped responding as he began to drool. There was a mounting of hell iron bricks in there, not to mention the other random treasures and carcasses of demonic beasts. It would take him days to sort those things out. Margaret did tell him she got a treasure, but this was not just a treasure, but an entire vault of treasures. Victor's astonished look made Lily frown. "How much metal did Margaret get you?" Lily asked, pressing her lips to his ears. Her soft breath woke him up, but he didn't know how to answer. "About a mountain. I would need you to pay cash," Margaret, who was very interested, interjected. Demanding her reward, she didn't give him those for free. She also wanted her private army of puppets. "Don't worry, I will give you a few puppets when they are finished," Victor said after swallowing. He really wanted to hug and kiss her now, but Lily, who was hugging him, made this impossible. "Not enough," Margaret flatly rejected. "Fine, you can have Alex too." "No, keep that jinx to yourself." "How about this, keep those things for now, and I will gain the right to ride you anytime I want," she said after thinking, causing Lily to gasp in shock as she looked at Victor and awaited his answer. "Fine, I would even give you my chastity for it, but you have to take care not to upset anyone who is watching," Victor said, making Lily pinch her young master's thigh very hard, not realizing that the two perverts were not only teasing her but talking in code. Margaret had just told him that she would be using the finances in her hand more freely, and Victor responded by telling her that she could do that, but she had to be extra careful. "Do you plan to make an army of puppets now?" Lily asked finally after discovering that her feeble strength was not affecting her young master at all. She has just imagined Vector laughing like a maniac in a sea of S*X robots. With the amount Margaret got me, it would be a waste. There would be some robots, but I want to build something better. I will tell you about it when I finish the plans, he said mysteriously. What's better than an army of S*X robots? Does such a thing exist? Margaret asked with a mischievous smile, but Victor didn't reply, he only smiled mysteriously. What he was planning to build was something that even after the reckoning, was deemed impossible because of the enormous cost. But before the reckoning, there was a bug that he could exploit. He really needed a good mana engineer though, and he had no idea where to get one. Even after the reckoning, those guys were hard to find. Let alone that, the mana transfer theory he needed has not been discovered, yet. Yes, can't he just get that scientist who established that theory? But, is she a girl? Lilt suddenly asked. What? Who? The one you were thinking about just now, she coldly spat as Margaret squinted her eyes. Yes, Victor confessed before looking at Margaret. Margaret, I will need you to travel to the Orange Pearl Islands, there, create a ship construction company, and buy a certain laboratory. Oh, ship construction, that means a shipyard, and a laboratory. What is it for? Margaret asked, is this urgent? Yes, the earlier the better, I would need this for the future. Do it under a shell company, it should have nothing to do with me, he said. And make sure that a scientist who goes by the name Zolan is there. If not, hire her. He added with a complex look, making Lily sigh in relief. It seemed that this Zolan girl was ugly, otherwise, Victor would have decided to go there himself. Chapter 274, True Blood Pill. Late in the morning, Yin stepped into the dining room following behind Lara and Elle. They have just finished taking a shower after their morning exercises. Lara had been making Elle and Yin tag along. In the last few days, Yin managed to get familiar with everyone around this mansion, and to her surprise, it was not as bad as she expected it to be. It was like a big family. To tell the truth, she really liked it here. Everyone treated her nicely, and took her shopping, buying her all kinds of pretty clothes. And the girl, Lara, really needed someone to take care of her. Yin was amazed by how sheltered and naive a girl her age could be. No wonder Victor asked her to protect his sister. And no wonder he made that little girl Elle her servant. She really knew how to guide her mistress by the nose. Big brother. Lara was flustered when she saw Victor, who was eating his breakfast surrounded by his harem and Alex. Welcome back, she said as she quickly saluted by bowing politely. Come on in, have some breakfast. Victor said casually as he continued to enjoy his meal. Lara nodded, then quickly grabbed a seat followed by her entourage. Victor was carefully observing her, and as he expected, although her symptoms had subdued, she didn't have much energy. He needed to fix her bloodline fast. Yin was looking at him as if she had something to say. He just gestured to her to wait until later, then looked at Hilda. Hilda, did you finish redecorating the basement? He asked. Mostly, you just need to wait for the paint to dry, she said with a sigh. Rushing this cost a fortune. But money really did make things go fast. Good, Hannah. Victor nodded, then looked at Hannah, who was enjoying her meal too. Yes, she asked. Was it time for work at last? For the last few days, she was literally in heaven enjoying the best treatment. In the Immortal Abode sect, she had to live a hermit lifestyle, they didn't even have electricity or running water. But here, she was really enjoying her time. Victor was treating her as a guest. If only he didn't force her to work for him. Follow me to check on your new lab after the meal. I will show you something interesting, Victor said with a wretched smile that thankfully Lily didn't see. She was ordered to get some sleep, or she would have made sure to stuff a couple of eggs in his dirty mouth. I understand, Hannah said. She looked worried. Victor nodded and continued to eat. Theta was taking care of feeding him. This time, esteemed brother, Lara suddenly spoke. Yes, Lara hesitated, but Elle held her hand under the table, encouraging her. I want your permission to invite my friends here for a sleepover, she said, not daring to look at her brother. How many friends? 7, she said. Good, I am fine with it, just let Hilda perform a security check on them. Already done, young master, they are clean. Hilda responded. Then do it, he said with a smile. Ellipsis. You come too, Victor told Yin as he dragged the reluctant Hannah toward the basement. Yes, young master, Yin said as she quickly followed. Reaching downstairs, Victor began to inspect the changes. As he instructed, the basement was divided into multiple sections, including a vault, a dungeon, and a lab, with various other preparation rooms. Is this lab your design? Victor asked as they entered the alchemy lab. It was relatively empty, but Victor did notice the tables arranged in a way that they would later be filled with many instruments. Hannah nodded. She always dreamed of having such a lab, but her sect was very old-fashioned, preferring old alchemy methods over new ones. It's not bad, Victor said as he sat on a wooden chair. Yin closed the door. We have something to talk about, he added, making Hannah flinch as she watched the little girl block her last way out. She shouldn't have asked Hilda to make this door soundproof. She already began regretting her design choices. Sit down, we need to speak, Victor commanded as he looked at Yin. First, Yin, what did you want to tell me? He asked. That girl, Monica, she had a demon smell on her. It was faint, but I could smell it. Is she a demon? Negative, just a trace. Yin shook her head. I will talk to her later. I have an idea what this is about, he said. Good job. Lady Margaret also had a strange smell today. Her soul seemed to have become brighter. A demon, a remnant. Oh, I understand. Victor didn't have a chance yet to talk to Margaret. He knew she wanted to speak with him privately though, and he planned to do so when they go out today. Then I will take my leave, Yin said, intending to leave the awkward atmosphere here. No, you should hear this too, Victor said. Now, Hannah, did you notice anything strange about Lara? He asked. Other than her pale complexion, nothing strange, Hannah said. That's exactly what I meant. What I will tell you here is a secret, he said, glancing at Yin, who nodded. Don't tell anyone no matter what. I understand, the girls replied. My family is not that harmonious, you see, Lara. She was the victim of a scheme, a family scheme. Let me phrase it like this, one of my stepmothers wanted to hurt her. He added, making Yin gasp as Hannah frowned. Did they poison her? No, that would be too foolish even for them, Victor said. You might not know this, but the Von Weiss has a very unique bloodline. All the children in the family would practice a certain art that would help strengthen that bloodline. Lara, like me, has a very pure bloodline from birth, he said. They hurt her bloodline? Hannah, who knew better, asked. Kinda. My stepbrother, who was supervising Lara's training, fooled her by changing some of the art steps. Practicing it caused her to unconsciously burn her pure blood, he explained. Didn't your family notice something? No, the changes in the art must have been done by a master who taught it to Rex, my stepbrother. The art does not hurt directly, on the contrary, it makes the practitioner stronger, but in exchange for their potential and bloodline purity. Oh, I see how that can be done. Hannah totally got it. She had some knowledge about such arts in the memories her family gave her. Did you tell your family elders? She asked. No, I plan to fix this silently. He didn't elaborate. Young master, the art Miss Lara was practicing in the morning. Yin suddenly interjected. Don't worry, it is something I taught her. I already wanted her not to practice that art, but it was too late. Her potential was nearly exhausted. He said, smiling at Yin. He really liked this girl, she took her job seriously. That awakening scroll was totally not wasted on her. Maybe he should try teaching her some business knowledge to test her. He needed to help Lara build her team before her awakening. That girl was too naive for her own good. You want me to craft a drug to heal her? Hannah asked after pondering for a moment. I don't have that knowledge, she began to complain when Victor suddenly took 3 sealed barrels and put them in front of her. Blood. Hannah immediately recognized the smell, baby's blood. She yelled, making Yin frown. Hannah looked at Victor with anger and disgust, making him surprised. She was more knowledgeable than he expected. It's not mine, I took it from a bad guy who was secretly murdering babies in my family. That's why you need to be perfect with it. I don't have a lot. He explained. I want you to make a pill with it. It is called the True Blood Pill, he said, taking out a small booklet and putting it on the barrel. This recipe was very simple, yet very complicated. Hannah quickly snatched it and began to leaf through it. Do you have all the ingredients here? She asked. Yes, he added, taking out another sack and throwing it to the table. It would be very complex, she said finally after reading through the entire recipe. I know, let Theta help you, he said. That girl has some really good luck. Oh, I understand, Hannah said coldly, but her eyes began to sparkle. She really liked doing alchemy. Especially this kind that saved people's lives. And Victor was really taking care of her according to their deal. No, her pride would not let her work for free. What would I get as my payment? she suddenly asked as she watched him walk toward the door. Although she was his slave now, she wanted some payment. How about a book of super rare alchemy recipes? He asked. Isn't that benefiting you? She said coldly. She was very tempted though. Don't worry, the things I plan to give you later would benefit you greatly. He said mysteriously with a smile as he walked out. Yin quickly followed after nodding to Hannah. Ellipsis. Tom, who was having an omelette for breakfast in Isabella's apartment, froze as he read the news feed on his phone. It was there in bold print. Victor White boldly announces to the world that he will marry Lynn Cross and Nova Astra at the same wedding. A noble marriage, in this day and age. The scandal. 2 at a time. What's next? 3 at a time. In the Granny's incident, it was another guy. We asked him why he did it. What were those toys? Many asked. We can't tell you, but we found out WHO sells them. The toys. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Here we asked the experts. And they replied +18. We are making our phones slow to make them better, White Technology states at a press conference. Spider Boy, WHO was he. Here's what I think. +18. The auction of the year had just ended. What fashion lessons did we learn? Victor White proposes to Nova Astra's parents. They accept. Dragon Hero 4 is in cinemas next week. Would John Sigma save Mira again? Mira, the highest paid actress of all time, is now in The World Is Your Dungeon. Filming now, in the cinema next year. Jane Armstrong had escaped from the asylum. Wanted dead or alive. Attempts to rectify marriage law failed after congressman was arrested for abusing a minor. How to take care of your harem. 3 pieces of advice from an expert. Brothels near your house. Are grannies the new fad? The princely funeral that no one attended. How did Prince Troy really die? 20 journalists died in a boating accident. They were having an O*Y with the captain. Tom's hand began to shake as he read the first article carefully. He then began to scroll around reading the other disturbing news. Victor. He spat coldly just as Isabella walked into the kitchen with another girl. Tom, this is Naomi, she wanted to meet you. She paused as she noticed Tom's pale white complexion. Tom, are you all right? She asked. She was a little worried about him. Last night he kept mumbling incomprehensible things and wasn't even able to finish the job. I need to go. Call you later. He took his jacket and then walked out, bumping into Naomi on his way out, completely failing to realize that she was naked. That's how much he was distressed. Tom, Isabella yelled after him, but he didn't reply as he closed the door behind him. Chapter 275. You call that a confession? UFC King, son of a ****** system. What the hell is happening? Didn't you tell me that you will protect Nova for me? Tom cursed loudly as he left Isabella's apartment and began to walk aimlessly. Caution. Watch your language with the system. This whimsical system comes from a reputable whimsical family that does not condone the use of such vulgar words. A quick electric shock ran through Tom, making him regain his senses. He wanted to start yelling again, but he quickly noticed the other system message. Nova was well protected. The system did disable Victor von Weiss's power as a man, but fate intervened. What do you mean? Tom asked as he frowned. Due to Nova's dark fate, she fell under a love curse. She doesn't love you anymore. Damn that Victor. I swear I will fuck him. Ah, an electric shock to the balls sent him howling to the ground. Watch it with the language. It was not Victor's fault. It was yours. Why? Tom yelled like a madman, startling a few pedestrians who were passing by his side. Mommy, why is that guy clutching his crotch? Does he want to pee? A little girl asked. Don't look at him, the mother scolded as she dragged her curious daughter away from the pervert. Tom totally ignored them as his bloodshot eye glared at the emptiness in front of him where the system was showing his message. By stopping Victor from getting to Nova, a demon has set his eyes on her. She is that pretty after all. The whimsical system could not interfere with the causality of the world. That guy is very troublesome. What? WHO? Tom asked in shock. This whimsical system can't reveal anymore, but it can help you find out on your own. Before we continue, you have to make a choice. The system will give you 3 options. Fight the world and save Nova, then get her to love you. Less than very hard, greater than. Fight the world, save Nova, then let her go to her loved one. Less than hard, greater than. Ignore this problem and find another girl. Less than easy, greater than less than system recommended, greater than. I choose the first, Tom said without even thinking. The whimsical system will now calculate a path for saving Nova, please wait. Ellipsis dot. Ellipsis 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 dot. Tom waited. Calculation finished. Saving Nova is possible. Nova mission number 1. Nova is under a demonic curse, find out more. Sneak into Victor von Weiss's mansion at midnight after 3 days and search for clues. Find out who Nova's secret evil lover is. Success. The next step in saving Nova would be revealed. Failure. Nova will marry the demon. Ellipsis. Dear Monica, Victor said as he looked at the nervous girl who was waiting patiently behind him as he finished his very constructive conversation with Tom. Yes, she asked nervously while looking around wondering why he brought her here. To this dungeon. Why was there a dungeon in his basement to begin with? She didn't dare to ask. Have you adjusted to living here yet? He asked. Such a question would have been completely normal if they were not surrounded by cages. She nodded nervously as she looked down. She was trying hard not to look at Victor. Whenever she sees his handsome face, strange things start happening in her body. Good, he said as he checked the sturdiness of the iron bars and turned to look at her. Did you get a strange package or letter recently? He asked directly. Ah, she frowned. I got a letter from one of my friends 3 days ago, she said. That Connor? Victor asked, remembering that he told Alpha to keep an eye on that demonized guy, but she lost track of him as he strangely disappeared. Yes, he invited me to go on a cruise trip. Don't get me wrong, I will not go. I wanted to tell him that though, but he was not answering his phone and the message didn't have a return address. Just a ticket. Can I see the ticket and the message? It's in the trash, she said nervously, earning herself a smile and pinch on the cheek. His touch was like electricity, it made her start to breathe faster. Why was her body reacting like this? Good girl, he said with a smile. The meaning of throwing the ticket was that she didn't want anything to do with Connor, she had decided to devote herself to Victor. She was about to moan but she held it in as she squeezed her legs together. In 2 weeks, I will be holding a wedding, Victor, who was amazed by her looks, suddenly said. She nodded, somewhat annoyed. Why was he telling her this now? Prepare yourself. I plan to announce to the world that I will be accepting you as a concubine at that time, he explained. Ah, what? Her heart began to bounce as she looked at him. Aren't you marrying Miss Lynn and that other girl? She asked as she fought the desire to jump on him. I am. I will also surprise the world by accepting a few concubines, you are among them. Ah, Monica froze. A company. Concubine. What? She gasped. This was too sudden. She felt that she should be angry. He was talking about some really absurd things after all. He was even proposing to a girl while telling her that he will marry her with others. Break up with him. Escape. That was what her rational mind was telling her, but the feeling in her stomach was something else entirely. She was excited, no beyond excited, she was in heat. She was happy. She didn't know how to respond. Are you against this? He asked. She didn't know how to answer. If you have some friends, make sure to invite them, don't worry about what other people would think. When they see how happy you are, those idiots will die of jealousy. He spoke casually as if her approval was granted, slowly brainwashing her. She didn't respond, and he stopped talking, slowly brushing the hair that was now covering her deeply blushing face. I need some time to think, she said after 5 minutes of awkward silence. This was too sudden, she didn't even know what to think. Take all the time you need. He said as he walked to the door, but if you take too long, the other girls wouldn't even leave scraps for you, he said with an evil smile as he walked out. He was right, he had been starving those girls for too long. Ellipsis. Will I be one of those surprise brides too? Margaret asked in a low voice just as Victor walked out of the basement. She was eavesdropping from the outside. Yes, don't tell Lily yet. I don't have a death wish, she said as she looked away, hiding her blush while cursing in her heart. This Victor was a big bastard. Couldn't he be more romantic? Did he have to confess like this? In the basement. Wait, who else would you marry too? She asked. I am not sure yet. I need to ask the girls for their approval after all. You didn't ask me, she protested. There is no need, you are already mine. And I already got your answer that day in the hotel. She didn't answer. He was right, she wanted him to go on his knees for once though, bastard. Margaret followed as Victor casually walked toward the kitchen where Hilda was washing the dishes with Mana. Mina, who couldn't help, was sitting to the side getting healed by Ruby. Young master, she said and quickly stood up when she spotted Victor and Margaret. Sit down, Victor said, then turned to Hilda. Hilda, do you have Monica's letter? Yes, young master, I plan to give it to you in the evening. Hilda said as she quickly wiped her wet hands with her apron, then ran to a side room before returning with a ripped envelope. As the house manager, this was her task to take care of such things. She had been keeping an eye on Monica ever since she entered this house. Victor casually opened the letter, where only a few casual lines were written, inviting Monica to attend a birthday party. There was a ticket attached for a luxurious cruise trip. Send a photo of the ticket to Kai and let him find everything about it. Already did, he didn't respond yet. Good, Victor said as he put the letter in his ring for later use, he had no time for this at the moment. Anything else? He asked. Nothing really, he said, then turned Ruby. How is the healing going? He asked. As an eldritch healer, Ruby should have the ability to heal severed parts. Ah, young master, it is working, but I am trying my best, but I keep getting tired. It's mana deficiency, because of your level. Try to do it slowly and take a pill of these every time you get tired. He said, throwing her a big bottle of pills. Would the healing be finished before the wedding? I will try my best, she said. Good, he nodded, then turned heading to the door. Oh, he stopped and looked at Hilda. Pick 2 good dresses for the twins. We already chose the maids' dresses. Not that, they will not attend the wedding as maids, but as brides. Bang, a dish shattered on the floor. What? Both of the twins gasped, ignoring the broken dish. What? I will be doing a grand wedding, I need all the pretty brides I can get. He said casually, too casually. Don't you want to marry me? Victor turned and asked with a frown. The girls didn't know how to answer such a question. Of course, they wanted to marry him. They have already confessed that they were his, but this was too sudden. It was only yesterday when they were being a little salty about the upcoming wedding, cursing at the brides, now they were the brides. Even Ruby was feeling a little jealous, but as someone who worked at brothel, she have no such aspiration. Little did she know, that Victor had plans for her, but they didn't mature yet. The girls will be ready. Hilda, who was trying hard to hide her smile, said as she noticed the twins' red tomato faces. They were in shock. Good, if they have any relatives make sure to invite them too. He said, totally ignoring the girls' shock as he walked out. You call that a confession? Margaret smiled fiendishly as soon as they left the kitchen. No, that was a statement. He replied, the girls are already mine, to begin with. I have nothing to confess. He, she shook her head as she snickered. What? He asked. I just realized something about you, she said in an amused voice. What? You are a coward, she said while nodding to herself, earning a glare from Victor. Don't get me wrong, I mean in love affairs. You could have easily told the girls at the dining table, but you chose to do it like this, she quickly defended herself. Quote. He didn't answer, she was partially right. Although he lived a long life, he didn't really like to completely expose his feelings. This was a habit from the past. In his previous life, after his wife died, he had to live in fear of that guy finding him again. And he also hid his past from Julian. So he hid his feelings deeply to move on. All the girls he knew after that were prostitutes and slaves. Margaret sighed when she noticed that Victor stopped talking. She really wanted to know what happened to him in his previous life. Do I need to invite my relatives too? She suddenly changed the subject to break the awkward silence. Yes, invite Peter and Tom. And don't forget about your aunt and the 2 piglets you call cousins. You are trying to create a mess at the wedding. Yes, the bigger the chaos, the easier it is to hide things, he said calmly. His plan had many variables, and the larger the cast, the more pieces he might be able to move. Will you tell me what your full plan is? She asked. Later, he said mysteriously, revealing nothing. She just sighed and silently followed him into the garage, where he took the keys to one of the new cars, a black smoking penguin that Margaret bought just to fill the garage. This car was not very luxurious but had a big trunk that gave it a gangster car air. So, you at the wedding, how many more brides do you plan to add? Margaret suddenly asked after noticing something out of the window. I told you, we will see. I have yet to ask Arya and Mira. Will you also propose to Beta and the others? No, I really like them and want to marry them too, but I don't want the world to know about them yet, he sighed. He wanted them to act as his hidden hands. Didn't you already show the world that you were with Theta at the auction? She is a minor. Do you want me to go to jail for that kind of crime? He exclaimed as he opened the car door. Like that would ever happen. Where are you going now? she asked as she watched him climb into the driver's seat, then followed to sit beside him. To take care of things. Too many things, he said as he turned the car on. Now, tell me, what exactly happened in the vault? Ellipsis. Alex, who had just finished her spar with Beta, sighed as she watched Victor drive away with Margaret. Thankfully, she was not punished after returning to the mansion, but somehow she was feeling a little depressed. Victor had been totally ignoring her. Couldn't he at least spank her a little? No, what was she thinking? Damn it, a cursing voice alerted Alex and Beta. It was Theta who was cleaning the shrubberies beside the garage, and happened to hear Victor's statement. Are you okay? Beta asked with a frown. I am fine, Theta snapped as she walked away. She was really annoyed. Why couldn't she be a few years older? Ellipsis. In a dark cell, Julian cursed as he crushed his cellmate's balls with the plastic slipper on his foot. I told you that I only wanted to finish my sentence. Did you really have to go and try to kill me? Julian yelled. Please spare me. Ah, the man whose hands and legs were already twisted out of shape screamed in pain. Shut up. Who told you to stab me? Julian asked. It was the boss, Big John from the yard. He said that you have bad paperwork. AHHHHHHHHHHHH. Did he tell you why I am here? Yes. There are rumors that you were planning to assault some female students. Ah. The man fainted in pain as the guards hurried into the cell. Julian, do you want your sentence to be extended? The guard asked as he checked the injured inmate. He saw everything through the cameras and hurried here. Don't worry, he will live. He tried to kill me. You can find the dagger he used, in his butt, Julian said as he sat on his bed. He was all friendly until yesterday. I don't know what went into his head. Thankfully, due to Julian's strong body, he successfully managed to protect his chastity until now. His family's test was really brutal, couldn't they find him some competent lawyer at least? This one went crazy too. The guard sighed as he flipped the collapsed man and then checked the bloody dagger in his ass with worried eyes. He quickly called another inmate to help deliver the man to the infirmary. Were there similar accidents? Julian asked. He was staying in his cell lately, because of his really bad reputation of being a pedophile. It was all because he refused to provide services to a certain man who fancied him when he entered here and took a shower. Under all of the dirt, Julian was really pretty after all. That man, after gaining a brand new broken nose, used the fact that Julian sneaked into the academy as leverage to spread rumors about him. You don't know, it is like a curse of bad luck had been cast on this place. The inmates are killing each other like maniacs. 13 died just last week. The guard sighed. Oh, you only have 10 days left, right? The guard asked as he closed the cell door and locked it. Yeah, I just want to pass it peacefully, Julian replied as he laid back down. He slowly took a small dirty notebook from his pocket and added the name Big John to the long list on it. Those were the names of the people he planned to take revenge on when he regained his status. Chapter 276, Replace the Bride. So that's what happened. Victor, who was driving, said after hearing Margaret's narrative of her dungeon dive, it was a gay door indeed. He nodded. He really wanted that door. That's what you care about. Can you tell me exactly what those souls were? She asked. No, but I can guess, he said. Those skeletons must have been experts who were sealed in that dungeon. They must have been sealed even before it became a dungeon. It is one of the demonic punishments. They lock someone up and even after he dies, their souls would not dissipate, but suffer in a dead body for eternity, he explained while keeping his eyes on the road. Oh, the seal on them must have weakened with time, and those guys took the chance to attack you when you went there. They were intending to take your body, but since your soul already belonged to me, they couldn't break my mark and ended up being eaten. Thankfully I renewed the seal that day at the Ho. You did what? Margaret screamed in surprise, making him momentarily lose control of the car. He almost ran over a cat. Don't scream, Victor said casually. That day, I was not sure if you were a friend or foe, so I strengthened the seal on your body with my authority. If not, the seal would have not been strong enough to repel them. Making excuses, she pouted as she looked to the side. What happened next? Why did I feel pain? You just ate more than you can digest. If not for the seal your soul would have exploded. He said, making her look back at him with some fear in her eyes. Really? Yup, you got super lucky. After we return, I will teach you some advanced soul arts to let you slowly harvest the energy that was absorbed in my seal. Don't you want it? She asked with surprise. Nah, one can't eat too many souls at once, and I ate a lot lately. Those ones are your trophy. He said. What are souls good for anyway? She asked. The souls are everything, he said. It is too early for you to learn this. Soul arts are really scary though, and a strong soul is never a bad thing, he added mysteriously. You didn't. Tell me though, why didn't I get any experience points after defeating them? They were already dead. The system does not recognize souls as things. So you did nothing according to your log. Oh, what a bummer, she puffed her cheeks. She was jealous of Lily and the twins, who had leveled up a lot. You were super lucky though, you got a shit ton of authority, Victor said, as he carefully looked at her. No, I didn't. My authority didn't change at all. Margaret interjected. You did, but you need to level up for the changes to apply. She could not see it, but through his inspection, he could see it in the log. Really? Did I get other things? She asked with a smile. You want more? That 10,478 authority points are not enough for you. You must understand that whenever a soul devours others, if it doesn't use any divine arts, there is only a 0.0001% chance that one of the 5 soul attributes can be transferred. Victor said. That thing must have had so much authority that some of it leaked to you. Oh, soul attributes, authority, memories, fates, afflictions, and karma. Then are there things out there who eat other people's souls? She asked. They exist, like the demons who attacked Yin's parents. He said before noticing the worried look on her face. Don't worry, soul devouring is very rare. As to attack others, you first have to risk everything by leaving your body defenseless. Likewise, attacking a strong soul that is inside the protective shell of the human flesh is suicide. For a 0.0001 chance of getting a random attribute, it is not worth it at all. Then how did the demons take the bodies of Yin's parents? She asked. They probably destroyed their souls with torture or some drugs first. They wouldn't even want to eat them. They needed the bodies after all. Then the one who attacked you that day, when you saved Theta. Oh, that one was special. It uses a trick to attack when the soul is getting awakened as a player. The soul would be in a vulnerable position for a few seconds at that time. He said, I took the hit for Theta at that time, so the demon tried to trick me. She was smart and delicious, he said with an evil smile. You have a method to devour souls, don't you? No comment, he said as he parked the car to the side in a small alleyway. It looked familiar. Stay in the car for a minute, I will need to grab a few dirty things, he said as he stepped down and headed toward the shabby-looking pharmacy to the side of the road. Ellipsis. Young Master Victor, we meet again. The old alchemist said while rubbing his hands when he spotted Victor. This was a fat sheep that he really liked to fleece. Yeah, Master Albert, nice to see you again too. Victor greeted with an awkward smile as he took out a list and gave it to the alchemist. He knew that this guy was a greedy bastard, but his wares were the real deal. I heard that you are getting married, Albert asked as he read the list then frowned slightly. Yeah, news travels fast these days, Victor said like an old man. It sure does, Albert said as he read the list slowly. Windflower, blue rose, powdered gems, goblin feces and slime core. Are you perhaps planning to replace the bride? Albert asked, stunning Victor. He didn't expect this alchemist to be this knowledgeable, recognizing the rare recipe of the shape-shifting pill despite the ingredients being obfuscated among others. Don't look at me like that, kid. When you live a long life, you see a lot. Albert said. Well, not the bride, but the bridesmaid, Victor replied, telling half of the truth. Oh, Albert nodded with a knowing smile. I have to warn you though, this recipe would only work for 3 hours. 3 hours is more than enough. The amount of the ingredients is enough for 100 pills, Neil added with surprise then looked at Victor. With a dirty smile. It was nice to be young. Exactly, Victor replied cryptically. Do you need an alchemist to do it for you? Nah, I already contracted one from my family, Victor lied. Oh, too bad, Albert said. Then looked at his assistant and threw the list to him. Get us those. Victor sighed as he watched the assistants hurry around. Ellipsis. Margaret sighed as she waited for Victor. Couldn't he confess like a gentleman? She slowly took out her phone and called her aunt after some hesitation. Margaret, why were you not answering my calls? Didn't I care for you for years, you ungrateful child? Do you know how worried I was? Her aunt scolded with a soft caring voice as soon as she answered. Ah, sorry, my boyfriend forbade me from contacting my family, but that's no longer a problem, Margaret casually lied. Her aunt had been calling her lately, to ask for money, and she was totally ignoring her. Did you break up? Did he realize your true nature and dump you? Or did he finish with you and kick you to some other man? Her aunt quickly changed her tone, reverting to her true snobbish nature. Did you get pregnant? None of that. He trusts me now. He wants to accept me as his concubine. He told me to invite you to the wedding. Oh, as I expected. No, what? A concubine? Her aunt asked in shock. She could not understand what the word concubine might mean in a normal conversation. She only heard it in historical dramas. Yes, a concubine, one of many. I will be part of the grand wedding. What grand wedding? Mom, it's that one. Victor White. The double wedding. Lulu's jealous voice could be heard. She must have been listening to Margaret too. What? Margaret's aunt asked. Margaret, are you one of the brides? No, I already told you. He plans to take a few side concubines in addition to the two main brides. He chose me, Margaret said with some annoyance. If you can't come, it's okay. We will come. Make sure to send us money for the dresses and accessories. Margaret hung up immediately while silently cursing just as she heard knocking on the window. She expected it to be Victor, but it turned out to be a stupid guy with a few piercings and dyed hair. What? Margaret, who was in a bad mood, snapped at him as she unrolled the window. Hey, beauty, how about you come with me? Look at that red fire rat car, it is mine. My daddy works for White Tech as a director. I am better than that stupid boyfriend. Ah, the man howled as the nutcracker who was holding a large bag of goods got to him from the back. Don't touch my toys. Victor scolded coldly as he threw the bag into the back seat and then hopped into the front. Finished already? Margaret asked as she pitied the gangster. He shouldn't have touched Victor's car, she was not a toy. She refused to be. Not really, let's go to our second destination. Victor said. Ellipsis. The second destination was, of course, the Grand White Hotel, the wedding venue. The Grand White Hotel was hosting the biggest event since its establishment 80 years ago. It was the wedding of the century, so even now, 2 weeks prior, when Victor reached there, he could easily notice how busy the workers were bringing objects in and out in preparation for the big event. Young master. The security guard at the door quickly welcomed Victor as he stepped inside with Margaret. Is Arya here? Yes, Miss Arya arrived 2 hours ago. The guard quickly replied. Good, Victor said, stuffing a tip in the guard's hand as walked into the grand lobby and looked around. This place always brought him so many memories, both good and bad. He even had to work as a receptionist here once. The family really treated its heirs differently depending on their rank. Many of the guests began to gossip when they noticed him as he waited for the elevator. He didn't care though, that's the effect he wanted. He just smirked as he took the elevator with Margaret toward the top floor, the same place where the party he attended a month ago was. That's when Victor's phone rang. It was Kai. What? Victor asked impatiently. Young master, there is trouble, Kai said. Trouble? Speak, Victor asked. Lately, everything around him was troublesome. Julian, the guy you asked me to keep an eye on, the guard who was on our payroll just called. Julian seemed to have beaten a man, and that guy just died in the infirmary. Bad luck, find another man to kill the corpse and take the fall. Julian must not be affected, and his name must not be mentioned anywhere. This must be done very discreetly. Victor said, Julian must be out of prison by the time of the wedding no matter what. Victor said, understood, I already prepared things. Kai replied, good, anything else? Victor asked as he stepped out of the elevator and spotted Arya who was scolding some workers. Yes, about the ticket Miss Hilda sent me. It is for a cruise trip on the grand ship the Three-Horned Dragon. It is set to sail for its first trip 3 months later in the South Sea. The event is sponsored by a company called Past Holdings registered in the Bluebird Islands. Get me a few tickets, not directly, but discreetly, I must be there naturally. If you can't do it, find some unlucky idiot, steal his card and identity, then let him enjoy a permanent residence in the middle of the sea. Ellipsis. Victor said. Understood, Kai said before Victor hung up. Chapter 277, Exotic Wedding. Arya, how are the preparations here? Victor asked as he looked around, observing the workers who were busy adjusting the decorations. As you can see, everything is on schedule. She said, why are you here? As far as I know you are too lazy to take care of trivial things. She said jokingly. After knowing Victor for more than a month, she confirmed that her first impression of him was true. He was a lazy bastard. A handsome, brave and cool lazy bastard. Did you print the invitations? He asked. Not yet, she said. Good, I sent a design to your email this morning with a list. Did you see it? He asked. No, she quickly checked her mail and there it was. The message contained a drawing of a strange gilded design with floating dragons. It was very domineering. A list was attached to it with many names. That many? Yup, make sure to print and deliver them ASAP. For the names marked with an asterisk, I will deliver the invitations personally. He said. Okay, anything else? I need you to make a small change in the wedding theme, he said as he looked around. What, are you telling me this now? Do you know how much work we have already done? It's not my fault, I just had an inspiring moment in the dungeon when I saw the greatness of the old murals. He told a partial lie. After witnessing the great misfortune curse, he realized that his initial plan was too naive. He needed something more secure. That's why he was changing things to build plans upon plans, scattering red herrings all around for spies to latch on. What kind of excuse is that? She asked as she gestured to the workers to stop. Whatever, it is your wedding, what do you want to do? You are doing a Wyron-style, royal wedding here. Right, that won't work for me, he said. It is totally not my style. What do you want then? What is your style? She asked with a frown, hoping that it would not be anything perverted. I want you to plan the wedding more exotically. I need a grand stage to show off. Arya frowned. Do you want a nude wedding? She asked coldly as Margaret looked at him with expecting eyes. This sounded fun. Not that exotic, he answered firmly after some contemplation, disappointing at least one girl and a few dozen workers who were listening in. I meant to do an old wedding ceremony. He said. How old? Ancient. I heard it was a trend lately to perform weddings using old ceremonies. He said carefully. A trend between perverts. She scolded. She heard about a wedding that was performed about a year ago where the couple sat on a volcano to imitate an old sacrifice ritual. The volcano, probably being jealous, exploded as the wedding wrapped up. I want to try that ceremony I read about in the history journal. What was it called? Yes, the Black Mountain Dragon Ceremony, he said as he struck his hands together. Black Mountain. Arya frowned before she began to search her phone to look it up, then she started to read as Victor watched with some amusement. Carefully manipulating what she was reading to make her say what he wanted her to say. This ceremony is too old, based on an ancient folklore tale of brides being offered to a dragon. She breathed in relief when she didn't see the word nude anywhere as she completed the first page. Did Victor think of himself as a dragon perhaps? Yeah, probably. She continued to read a few more lines before suddenly stopping. This wouldn't work. Even if we ignored the restriction on the number of brides. The law of the Wyron Principality requires a priest to be present to validate the marriage. If you used none, that would be a political scandal. Arya said as she read the article. Father would not approve, especially after that. She didn't continue. I can throw a priest in the mix, no one would care. He just has to stand to the side, and that guy would probably sleep during most of the event anyway. Victor shrugged his shoulders. Whatever, are you planning to take concubines too? The ceremony requires a dragon, and at least 7 brides to complete. She suddenly asked in shock. This ceremony could accommodate up to 33 brides, what pervert designed this? Yes, I will be the dragon. He said, confirming her assumption. In addition to the 2 main wives Lynn and Nova, I will also marry the twins, Margaret, you, and maybe Mira or someone else. I still haven't decided yet. I see, pervert. Wait, what? Can you repeat that last sentence? Arya frowned and raised her head from her phone to look him in the eye. She was unsure she heard him right. I said that, I still haven't decided yet, he said loudly. The one before it, Mira or someone else? Yes, I plan to tell Mira later. The one prior, Arya interrupted. Oh that, the twins, Margaret, and you, yes, you will be one of the brides. He clarified, making her gasp, didn't you always dream of marrying me? He added as if this was an established fact. Who said that I want to marry you? She asked angrily, as Margaret shook her head. All the girls were having the same reaction. Did Victor need to do it like this, in front of all the eavesdropping workers who had nothing better to do but listen and gossip? Ha! Margaret, who was frowning, gasped as she realized something, then kept her silence. It is all your fault. You have to take responsibility, Victor said stubbornly. You told me that every time you kicked my poor balls in bed. No, I didn't. She lied with a blush. She knew that she talked a lot in her sleep, but she was not sure what she could have said. You did. You have no choice in this matter anyway. I already decided for you and told father. Victor lied as he turned around to make his escape. Margaret quickly followed. Bastard. Victor could hear Arya yell behind him as he reached the elevator. Her voice was not angry though, it was a little high-pitched with many expectations mixed into it. Many of the workers began to look at her with strange eyes after that. "Find a good dress," Victor said with a smug smile as the elevator door began to close, totally enjoying Arya's appearance as she tried to look angry with her blushing pretty face. Ellipsis. Quote. Margaret sighed. "In the end, you were really using us. You only wanted to marry us now so that you can do that perverted ceremony," she said with some annoyance as they left the hotel. She didn't notice how Victor was carefully observing the doors and windows during their flash visit here. "Not really, I would have married you all later no matter what, but this ceremony has two main points. The first one is that it allows the brides to cover their faces, which will help me cover my tracks, and the second point is that all of the brides would be official brides, regardless of what the paper says." Oh, Margaret was surprised, totally unaware that Victor didn't tell her two additional crucial points that only a few knew in this day and age. This ceremony was not just a show. Like many ancient ceremonies, it had ancient roots. This one was based on a system binding marriage ceremonies. It was so binding that breaking it was impossible if it were to be done correctly. The second point to choosing this ceremony among myriad others was the fact that it was meant for dragons. In ancient times dragons were walking in this world, and this ceremony was one of the things that survived the ages. "I should probably be shopping for a dress too," Margaret said after some thinking. "You can do that tomorrow," Victor said casually. "Today you must help me with my mission," he added with an evil smile. Ellipsis. After leaving the hotel, Victor looked at his watch and confirmed that it was still 10:20 am, so he quickly hurried to his car, intending to go visit the crime scene and finish the stupid council mission as soon as possible. Reaching the hotel's parking lot with Margaret, he was confronted by a group of 10 hooligans hammering his car with metal bats as two young men were watching to the side. One of them was the guy with dyed blonde hair that the Nutcracker kicked earlier. Several hotel security guards were standing nervously to the side watching, seemingly threatened by the other young man who wore an expensive white tuxedo. "Thank you, big brother," the blonde guy said to the young man respectfully. "That bastard deserves this for kicking me after I told him to give his girl to you." "Is that girl really that pretty? Is she any good?" the young man asked casually. "The last time, the girl you got was very inexperienced. Her face is 8/10, but the slutty air around that girl is absolutely something Big Brother would like." "We will see." "See what?" a very cool voice asked from behind. The girl, the Big Brother began to speak, then stopped and looked behind to see Victor's smiling face. "You, why, young M, Master. Victor." The young man began to speak then started to stutter nervously when he recognized Victor's face. This guy was the son of the newly appointed CEO of White Investments Limited. A few days ago, his newly appointed father told him the reason for his new appointment. The old boss Alvin had seemingly been cut into pieces and fed to the fish after his stupid son offended someone from the family. After that, the new CEO showed his son the photos of two handsome youths, young Master Victor and Mistress Iris, telling him to avoid angering those two at all costs, and to find a way to gain their favor if he could. Ellipsis. "The one and only," Victor replied, confirming the young man's thoughts. "Why are you beating my toy?" he asked in a very casual voice as he looked at the poor car that was wailing non-stop for her young master to help her. "Is that car?" Before the nervous Big Brother could reply, the blonde guy began to yell. "It's his big brother, the one who kicked me. He even cursed at you, saying that you are a piece of sh*t. He screamed in pain as his big brother kicked him in the freshly healed balls. "Big brother, it is him, not me, The big brother didn't respond, he just took a metal bat from one of his stunned men's hands and began hitting the blonde guy until he stopped moving, totally ignoring his fading out pleas and the thick stream of blood that began to seep under him. "Young master," the big brother turned to Victor and began to speak but was stopped by a gun barrel pointed at his head. "Freeze and drop the metal bat." A group of police officers seemed to have arrived just in time and drew their guns. They were headed by none other than Officer Lee. Chapter 278. That's how you slap faces. "Sorry about that," Lee said awkwardly as she uncuffed Victor. "Yes, she just tried to arrest him, but that big brother, who just killed his friend quickly cleared things up, confessing that it was all his fault. He was the one who assaulted the poor car and his now dead friend. Victor was a victim. He wanted Victor to forgive him and hoped that his father would not end up like his predecessor." "It is okay, Officer Lee, you were just doing your duty," Victor said as he casually took back his phone from one embarrassed police officer and quickly sent Kai a message to lightly punish a certain CEO, and to fire the security personnel of the hotel who failed to protect their young master's car. The young man did the right thing by acknowledging his wrongdoing. Victor liked smart bootlickers. Anything else, officer? Victor asked as he noticed that Lee was still standing next to him with a hesitant look on her face. Ah, just a question, I heard you were getting married. Lee said as she put her hand behind her back. Yes, my family is forcing me. I tried to ruin it by trying to make a scandal in that brothel, but it failed, he sighed as a victim. Oh, so that's what it was about. Sorry for doubting you, she said with some embarrassment. It's okay, officer, he sighed. So, she hesitated, are you still into men? She asked as Margaret, who just finished inspecting the car, held her stomach and looked away to avoid laughing. I don't know anymore, he sighed as he shook his head. He was wondering how to get rid of this stupid girl softly, she seemed strangely persistent today. His father would definitely cut him into pieces if anything funny happened here. Theodore liked his offspring in proportion to how much he liked their mothers after all, and he really liked Nicole, despite her not being his wife. I decided to try different things before deciding, he said after some thinking. Different is good, she said while nodding. That's what everyone is telling me, he said. Then, how about we have lunch together and talk about it? She asked after some hesitation. As long as he didn't have his wedding, he was fair game. She convinced herself. She would definitely let him fall for her. Ah, I don't mind. Really, she was surprised. Yeah, how about tomorrow? Can you bring your mother too? He asked after some thought. That would be, my mother? Why? She was taken aback. I think Aunt Nicole is a very charming, mature, and knowledgeable woman. I want to get to talk to her again. I may ask her about how she met my father, and maybe about her preferences. Victor began to speak with a dirty smile that Lee didn't like at all. My mother is a married woman. Really? He asked with a bigger smile. So, can you invite her? My mother is busy tomorrow, she said in a hurry after finally realizing what Victor meant by trying new things. That Granny's incident was not fake after all. This guy was already beyond redemption. Then how about the day after? Where are you going? I just remembered that I have an important task, Lee said as she mounted her motorbike and drove away in a hurry. This conversation went in a direction that she didn't like at all. What about the lunch? She didn't answer. Victor shook his head while smiling as he watched her go. He should probably find her a good husband pretty soon, someone with enough power to satisfy her fetishes, but not too much. What are you smirking about? Margaret asked as Victor walked toward her and looked at his poor car being towed. Nothing, he sighed as he approached the damaged car and softly patted it. Don't worry, I will fix you up soon. I never give up my toys, he told it softly, as he sighed in relief that he had already put the things he purchased earlier in his ring before entering the hotel. With the misfortune curse in the air, he needed to be careful or he would end up like this poor car. He slowly turned to Margaret. Let's go. Where? To buy a new car, of course, he said, making the just appeased car behind him start to beep in jealousy. Not really, the man who was fastening it to the towing truck just made a mistake. Ellipsis. Being in the middle of the city, Victor didn't take long to find a suitable car dealership nearby. Unfortunately, this place didn't belong to his family, but he didn't really care and he was in a hurry. A sultry pretty woman ran to his side as soon as he stepped into the shop. She had noticed the quality of his clothes and the handsomeness of his face. He seemed familiar, but she couldn't really remember where she saw him before. Little did she know that this one was the rumored pervert groom, but all of the images circulating in the media were slightly altered to hide his identity. This was the family protocol for elite heirs. What can I do for you? She began to speak, then paused when she noticed Margaret, who was purposely grabbing her young master's hand. Margaret, the woman asked, making Margaret frown as she recognized this woman. She met her in the past at a party sponsored by her late uncle. Nadia, Margaret said with a frown as she looked at the woman. I heard that your uncle is in prison, Nadia said. Is he still running his business from there? Quote, he is dead, Margaret said. She discovered this a week ago when she secretly used the family resources Victor gave her to try and put a bounty on her uncle's head. Surprisingly, she was a moment too late. Someone seemed to have assaulted him in prison. It was very ugly, and it involved a group of no less than 9 burly men who took turns playing with him. According to Kai, it was Victor who ordered this. No one was allowed to touch his toys after all. Oh, I am sorry to hear that. Are you still taking customers? Nadia asked. She was not sorry at all though. Is that your new pimp? She asked, looking at Victor with a fluttering look, carefully adjusting her open collar to reveal some flesh. Margaret, who was super annoyed at the moment, was about to say yes, but Victor beat her to it. Hello, I am Victor, Lady Margaret's exclusive sugar baby, he said, rubbing himself into the surprised Margaret. She promised to buy me a new expensive car as a reward for my performance yesterday. That's why we are here, he said with a stupid smile. He really enjoyed slapping stupid bitches' faces. This has something to do with his misfortune past life. Ah, what? Nadia was shocked. She thought that this handsome man was Margaret's new rich boyfriend. She intended to indirectly reveal Margaret's dirty past to make him dump her so that she would have a chance to cling to him. Yes, I am a rich lady now. Margaret smiled sweetly as she played along, puffing her chest. She also squeezed Victor's butt from the back. She knew she would have to pay for this later, but she couldn't resist teasing him. Ah, impossible, you are just a slut. Nadia was shocked. Who did you sleep with to get all that money? She asked, totally unaware that Victor was looking at her very coldly. Only he can call Margaret a slut. I am no longer in that line of business, Margaret said coldly as Victor held her hand calming her. What do you do nowadays? She asked Margaret in a hurry. I run a business. I took the money my uncle gave me and entered the stock market. I made a fortune there, she said. This was truly the official story she was weaving. Victor told her to separate her finances from his so that she would be able to move more freely in the future. Oh, Nadia didn't know how to respond. She didn't like the fact that Margaret, who was way better than her in bed, was even better than her in real life. Now take us to see the cars, Victor suddenly demanded impatiently, making Nadia squint her eyes before deciding to play a little game with Margaret to put her in her place. Please follow me, she said, walking straight until she reached the middle of the store where a sleek high-tech car was on display. This is a silver rose, it is $8 million, she said, waiting for Victor to beg Margaret for it and Margaret to refuse, but that didn't happen. This wouldn't work, Victor said, surprising even Margaret, who liked the car and was ready to slap the woman's face and pay directly. What? Nadia asked. Show us the next one, Victor said, directly looking away as if this pretty car was not up to his standard. Then, how about this fire rat is, she began to explain about the next supercar. No, Victor said just as she finished. It does not suit my image. How about the flash driver? Ugly. The sky holder. Too small. I want something bigger. Mountain breaker. Too big. ... Victor, who was super evil, only said no to the cars Nadia was showing him after waiting for her to fully explain everything about them one by one. It took them 2 hours until they finished going around the shop. Nadia was literally out of breath. I want this one, Victor said finally, as they approached a cheap black van right next to the door. The ebony turtle. This one is for poor people. It is only $9,000. It is on sale right now for $5,000. Are you sure you want this? Said Nadia, who not only wanted to make Margaret pay a lot, but gain a big commission. Selling this ugly car would only get her about $25. She didn't like that at all. She was even beginning to suspect that Margaret had been playing her all along. Yes, it has a sufficiently large trunk and a strong engine, Victor said as he examined the car. And most importantly, it is so cheaply made, that its entire frame is mostly made out of plastic. It is the one I need, he said with a smug smile. We will take it, Margaret said as she threw her credit card in Nadia's face. Process it quickly. This young lady has a busy schedule, she demanded in a loud voice, playing her part perfectly. She had no idea though why Victor chose this car. Nadia wanted to play some tricks, but noticing the card, she didn't dare to. It was a white platinum Dragon Bank card. How did that slut get this? She wondered as she hurried to process the purchase. She didn't even suspect that the card was fake or stolen. No one would dare to be that stupid. The process ended in just 10 minutes. Nadia worked very efficiently. If Margaret lodged a complaint against her, she would be fired in a heartbeat. The boss, who was her sugar daddy, might even cut her into pieces. The car is yours, Nadia said as she gave the keys to Victor with a sigh. She was wondering if this sugar baby has something wrong with his mind. Good, now we can talk about the other business, Victor said as Margaret, who climbed into the car, looked back. What other business? What other business? Nadia wanted to inquire too, but the answer arrived before she could ask. A bloody slap to her pretty face sent her rolling to the opposite side of the store, crashing into an expensive car and breaking its windshield. Never call my girl a slut, Victor coldly said as he slowly wiped his hand with a paper napkin, then climbed into the driver's seat and started the car. That's how you slap faces, he told the shocked Margaret as he stepped on the gas pedal and drove out of the store arrogantly, nearly running over the stupid security guard who tried to stop him. Chapter 279, Got a Third. At noon, a very suspicious black van slowly parked in front of a dark side alley that was designated off-limits by a few shredded yellow tapes. This area was in the middle of the slums, so the black van was not a strange thing. The strange thing was the purple-haired handsome young man and the pretty red-haired girl who descended moments later. They obviously didn't fit in this neighborhood. Hey pretty, a gangster who was hanging with a few others on the side of the alley looked at each other with smirks before heading toward Victor and Margaret. Honey, that man is hitting on me. Margaret quickly grabbed Victor's arm in fear, as if she couldn't just castrate those men in seconds. Victor chuckled and looked at the man, intending to scold him, but he was interrupted. I am not hitting on you, ugly bitch. The youth cursed at the stunned Margaret as he turned to Victor. I meant you, pretty boy, he said, licking his lips. His friends in the back also licked their lips, and some passerby who also noticed Victor licked his lips. Finally, Victor licked his lips. Bang! A gunshot passed by the man's ear. It was Victor who took out his grand silver gun in a split second and shot. He wanted to aim for the man's crotch, but this was a crime scene after all, and he didn't want to contaminate it. If you don't want a third butt, you better leave, Victor said coldly as the man stepped back and then looked at his friends, who looked at each other. Then one of them turned around, then turned back as he took his own gun and aimed it at Victor and shot without hesitation. Bang, 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 bang. He shot, and shot, but only hit the air as Victor, who appeared as if the bullets passed through him, looked coldly at the terrified men. Bang, another shot sounded, but this time it was Victor who fired. The man lost his hand a moment later. Ah, the man screamed as he held his bloodied hand. Run, someone said, and the men began to run away. They had no idea what just happened, but they knew they shouldn't be here. As they got far enough, their brains began to turn and think about what Victor told them. What did that young man mean by a third butthole? They only had one. Bang, 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 bang. Victor, who was far from them at the moment, swiftly fixed the problem with surgical precision aim. Now each of the men, who were swimming in their own blood and urine on the ground, got a second butthole. Bang, the man who took out the gun and shot earlier got a third. Ah, ooh oh, mama, wah, new. The 5 men began to scream in pain as Victor took back his gun. He had been waiting for them to get enough from the crime scene. Isn't this a little excessive? Margaret was not feeling sorry for them, but she had to ask as she felt a little shaken by Victor's decisiveness. No, those men are lucky I spared them. They were the ones who shredded the tape sealing the crime scene. They obstructed my work, he said coldly. They must be a part of the gang whom the guys who died here belong to. The tattoos matched the ones found on the bodies. They must have been hanging here, wanting to find the culprit who killed their colleagues. Oh, Margaret didn't really understand why this was a crime, but she just nodded and followed Victor into the alleyway, where he slowly flashed his family token toward a strange plate on the wall. It was a high-tech camera that had been placed there to monitor the crime scene. What are we going to do here now? She asked. Council mission. Some brat who had just become a player, seemingly wanted to play a superhero. 9 gangsters were killed here a week ago, Victor said as he clicked on the plate, turning it into a screen that began to play everything that had happened since the council agent placed it here. As he expected, some gangsters seemed to have come sniffing around and had already ruined the crime scene. The plate also had the photos and reports of the crime, from the photos of the victims' charred bodies to the autopsy report. Other than that, there was nothing of value. Is being a superhero a crime? Margaret asked as she also watched the photos on the plate. She was not familiar with the council's rules. She was given a book about them in the academy, but she didn't remember every rule. No, being seen playing a superhero is. Especially if you are a player, he added as he turned off the plate. Oh, did you find anything then? Margaret asked. No, he said, but I know a few things about this case from my past life, so the investigation is just a formality, he said as he began to look around. Oh, she didn't expect him to tell her that. My father took this case back then. Seemingly, he fought some girl who wore a mask. He was severely injured because of her, but in the end, he managed to execute her, Victor pondered. This was only her first appearance. Back then his father kept tracking her for 6 months as she grew strong very fast. Her powers seemed to be his nemesis. Do you know her identity? I never saw the report. All the information I got was from the curses my father threw at me when I went to check on him in the hospital. Victor sighed. His father really treated him rudely back then, but now he understood that this was to protect him. Theodore didn't want his enemies to try to use his powerless son against him. Oh, Margaret nodded as she pondered that Victor must have been through a lot too in his previous life. Although he refused to tell her his story, she had noticed that he would reveal some things to her every now and then, and that made her very glad, as she knew that she was the only one who knew his secret. Even Lily, whom Victor adores more than anything, had no idea about her young master's secret. So what are we going to do now? Margaret asked. Follow the threads, he said mysteriously. Watch my back, he added as he activated his Fate Eye skill, and the inside of his eyes turned slowly into black and white concentric circles that began to revolve around. The world turned dim with glowing lines all around. Fate threads. Victor slowly looked at the ground, watching the threads intertwine and fade. One, in particular, got his interest. It was a little dim, but he could see that it was seemingly severing the fading ones. It was probably the one he was after. As he could see no other interesting one, he quickly activated his fate tracking skill, locking it at the line, then turned off the Fate Eyes skills and collapsed on the ground to rest. Are you okay? Margaret asked. Yeah, he said as he got to his feet a moment later. Thankfully, with his level now, he could somehow control his fate skills without a backlash. Did you find what you were looking for? Positive. Let's go, he said as he walked out of the alley with her. The men were still there wailing. Victor ignored them as he climbed into the car with Margaret and then drove away. Ellipsis. Victor slowly drove, following the black thread in his vision. This was a thread connecting a killer to his victim in the crime scene. Margaret said nothing as she watched the car go through the streets. This place was the poorest area in the city. She lived in such places for a while back then, before she met that bastard Mr. X. Victor drove casually until it stopped next to a middle school where the students were slowly walking out after a long day of doing nothing in the name of education. HSSSSSSSSSSSS. Margaret hissed as she looked at Victor in shock. You are going to kidnap a girl, she said. No wonder he bought this car. Shush. He glared at her angrily, then turned back to look at the road waiting for his prey. Found it, the pretty girl with a ponytail and red ribbon, he said as he began to drive the car slowly, following the girl who was walking home. She obviously had no friends. And from the worn badge on her back, she was clearly from a poor family. Victor waited until she was far away from school to drive near her slowly. Hey little girl, he spoke to her, as he drove beside her. She looked at him vigilantly, stepping a little away from the car, then asked, What? Are you interested in working as an idol? I am recruiting for Horizons Media, he said as he inspected her. Name, Ren Stinger. Level, 0. Class, Thunder Avatar, SSS. Authority, 5. Strength, 61. Agility, 63. Intelligence, 25. Luck, 17. Charm, 37. Order, 10. Skills. Avatar Insignia, SSS. Thunderbolt, S. Thunder Escape, S. Electrify, A. Thunder Affinity, A. Threatening Aura, E. Cooking, F. Dance, F. Fate Status. Fate's Power, C. No defined fate. Destiny list less than 10 order points to unveil greater than. No wonder his father suffered at her hands. This girl was an avatar. Avatars are a certain type of class where their owners have complete mastery over a certain element. They are a very troublesome bunch as they could use their element to attack and escape. That's not the most important thing. The really crazy thing about them is that their strength, intelligence, and agility attributes didn't depend on the system to go up, they had their own growth requirements. This really explained why his father was almost killed by a little girl back then. That brat was using the electrical wires to move around me. I would have been killed by her, if not for George WHO used his fire to melt everything in sight. That's what his father said. Victor really wanted this one. She would be a great addition to his lowly collection. Ren looked at him but didn't respond, then turned back to the road and began to continue her trip. She was not in a hurry though. She planned to test him to see if he was a bad guy, and that's what Victor wanted. If this girl escaped, capturing her would be a pain in the ass. Come on girl, don't let that beauty of yours go to waste. Victor began to speak to her as he drove beside her. He also made Margaret secretly take a photo of her and send it to Kai. Everything about her was transferred to Victor's phone moments later as she totally ignored him and continued to walk without responding. Can you hear me? Quote. Do you know how pretty you are? Quote. I have some lollipops here, do you want one? Quote. Listen here, I plan to assemble an idol group, you will be number 4. You must hurry and take this offer before I find someone else. He began to speak as Margaret, who sat beside him, wondered if he had done this before. Did he have experience in kidnapping little girls? Probably. Idol group. There are others. Ren finally spoke as she looked at him. Yes. They are as pretty as you. I am sure you would be good friends, he said with a perverted smile that fooled no one. Do you want to join them? I will give you a lot of money as a down payment. You can buy all the pretty and expensive things you want, he added as he stopped his car. Ah. Ren paused, then looked at him. Okay, but I want to see the money first, she said as she approached the van fearlessly. She really thought of herself as a superhero. Hop in, Victor said as he unlocked the back door and opened it to show her that there were no other people there. Money first, she said as she stood her ground. She didn't plan to escape with the money though. Victor knew that she was planning to fry him with her thunder, so she was planning to secure the money beforehand. Fine, Victor said after some hesitation. He took out $5,000 from the dashboard and threw it to her. She was shocked, she had never seen this much money in her life. Can you come in now? The others are waiting, Victor said. Yes, she said after taking a deep breath and encouraging herself. She already defeated 3 groups of gangs and bullies and saved some people. This one will not be the exception. She slowly climbed into the van's back seat and sat down and looked around, planning her attack plan. This would be her second time attacking a kidnapper in a car. The inexperienced girl had no idea that this cheap van was made out of plastic. There were only a few disjointed metal parts made of aluminum. It would be very hard to escape or utilize her power in this place. Chapter 280, Ren. Watching Ren climb into the car, Victor smiled as he started the engine, then his phone rang. It was his mother. He could only sigh and answer as he shot the ready-to-attack Ren, an apologizing look that stopped her in her tracks. Hi Mom, he said awkwardly. Victor, why weren't you answering the phone this past week? Elena asked immediately. Ah, sorry, I was busy doing some business. Some pervert who looked like me had ruined my reputation, so I had a lot of explaining to do. He said with a sigh, ignoring Ren's curious eyes. Your father has already told me. I almost had a heart attack when I saw that video. She sighed too. I can't believe such evil people exist. Don't worry Mother, I will find that pervert and punish him thoroughly. You don't need to touch such a disgusting fellow, your father is already searching for him. I know, is there anything you want? Of course there is. Why the hell are you marrying 2 girls at the same time? Don't you have any shame? She asked angrily. Why the girls are not Lily and Mira? She added. Family orders. He sighed as if this was not his idea. Oh, did you really have to announce it like that though? Couldn't you do it secretly like your father? Family orders too. I don't know what those old guys in the Elders' Council are thinking, he lied. Damn it, Elena cursed, as she had no power in the family. Don't worry, everything will be fine, Victor suddenly said, reassuring his mother. I will send you some invitation cards, be sure to give them to Grandpa and my uncles and aunts. He said, do you really want to invite those? She said, boldly calling her family, those. Like some species of lowly insects. Yeah, we are family after all, Victor said. I will call you later tonight. Now, I am busy scamming. No, doing business, he said before saying goodbye to his mother and hanging up. Ellipsis. Ren carefully watched as the handsome youth hung up his phone and then slowed the car down. She was wondering at the moment if this guy was really a recruiter or not. He didn't sound like a bad guy, except for that scamming world she might have misheard when he said goodbye to his mother. She was not sure though. She looked out of the window and realized something was wrong. She was so preoccupied eavesdropping on his conversation that she didn't realize that they were now out of the city on a dirt road. When did that happen? She quickly tensed up. This was definitely a bad guy. Could it be the one she had been searching for? She had been investigating the circumstances of the disappearance of one of her friends for the last 8 months. It all started at that time when she followed her friend's trail into an abandoned alleyway. There she was knocked unconscious by some evil guy and then thrown inside a car trunk. It just so happened that the blood trickling from her forehead seemed to have touched a strange wooden carving, causing her to gain her powers, which she accidentally used to fry the car and the 4 bad men in it. She was in shock at first. She was even terrified of her own power and the look of burning people. When she returned home, she didn't tell her parents a thing and just hid in her room. It took her a few days to realize that she had superpowers like those superheroes. Although she survived, she lost the only lead to finding her friend, so she decided to try to find her friend once again, and this time a bad man tried to assault her. She was sniffing around in some very shady places after all. Having no other choice, she unleashed her wrath on that man. She didn't mean to kill him, but he ended up as a mummy after taking only one of her attacks. She ran away as she was terrified. She expected him to be hurt, but not like that. She learned the truth the hard way. Cartoons didn't tell the truth. No one can walk unharmed after suffering a lightning strike. Feeling horrified, she decided to never use her power again. She didn't want to be a murderer. She was very terrified of her own strength. That's when another one of her classmates disappeared. After some hesitation, she had to put on the cloak again to search for him. With great power comes great responsibility, right? So ever since that time, she had been investigating the kidnapping gangs around the city and seeking out the bad guys. She didn't really have to actively do that, she only needed to stop being careful. Those guys seemed to be seeking her on their own, especially in the past few weeks. It was like they were on steroids. She nodded to herself as she felt the car slowly stop. The red-haired girl descended from the car and then walked away while cursing. Why was she leaving? Why was she cursing? She turned to look at the handsome young man who looked at her with an evil smile. Then moments later he began to slowly turn into a demon. Two long horns began to rise from his forehead and long sharp teeth began appearing in his mouth. His eyes were glowing red as he looked at her. Damn it, this was a villain. She was utterly terrified. Without thinking, she quickly tried to leave, but the door was locked. Damn it, she had no choice but to activate her power, zapping the thing with a bolt of thunder. The lowly attacked. That thing howled in pain, turning into smoke, but before Ren could sigh in relief, it reformed next to her, but it was somehow smaller. The attack was not very effective. She knew what she needed to do. She zapped it again, the same thing happened. It grew even smaller. She started to attack that thing again and again, with electricity, while directing some to the car's door, intending to unlock the door. The demon kept howling in pain as it tried to go near her, but the car was not affected. Ren didn't know why though. She had no time to think as she focused on the demon. She slowly began to feel tired, and her vision was getting blurry, but she kept attacking as the demon, which was now furiously trying to snap her neck or bite her, was only a few feet tall, jumping on the front seat. It took her another 15 minutes of attacking before the damn thing was dead and she collapsed panting. That's when out of nowhere, she felt something touch her forehead. It was that young man who was standing next to her with the car door open. Didn't he just turn into a demon? She tried to zap him, but no electricity came out of her. In fact, she couldn't move at all. The lowly was exhausted. Spare your energy, he said. Your mana is exhausted, and I have already locked your strength, he said as he passed another talisman on her, just to make sure. Bad luck was in the air. The lowly had been paralyzed. She was horrified. She wanted to fight back or at least curse at him, but soon she felt the world turn around her and she lost consciousness. Gotcha. The lowly was successfully captured. Do you want to give her a nickname? Ellipsis. Victor sighed in relief after making sure that Ren was secured. Just as a red car stopped next to him, it was Margaret who was sent to borrow a car. The black van was out of fuel. Victor made sure of that as he didn't want anything to explode when that girl began shooting thunderbolts from her fingers. Although the car appeared undamaged, every metal piece in it melted under the lowly's wrath, including the cheaply made engine. Let's go, Victor said as he carried the unconscious little girl softly in his arms. Where to? Margaret asked with some annoyance. To some very shady place where young boys and girls get scammed all the time. Ellipsis. Ren woke up. She was tied to a wooden chair in an empty large room, and that handsome young man was sitting behind the wooden table that was in front of her. They were alone. She immediately tried to break free and attack, but nothing happened. Her powers were disabled. Did she lose her powers? No, she could still see the strange game menu in the corner of her vision, but she couldn't attack. Save your strength, the young man said. Your powers are sealed, he said. She glared at him. Do you know why you are here? Because you kidnapped me, she stated. Not really, you are under arrest for violating the state of secrecy, he said as he put his family token on the table in front of her with a thick document that had pictures of a burnt alleyway. She recognized this as the one she burnt with the bad guys 2 weeks ago. You are a police officer? She asked as she began to sweat. I did nothing, she lied. She had killed no less than 41 bad guys during the last couple of months. It was not her fault, they kept throwing themselves at her. Not really, but in a way, I am scarier. He shook his head and then flicked his fingers, making a small flame appear on the tips of his fingertips, making her squint her eyes. You are not the only one with superpowers, you see, there are a lot more. I work for the guys who make sure that no one misuses their power. Think of it as super people's police, but you can call us a management committee too. She didn't understand. Weren't you a demon? She asked. That was an illusion that I cast to exhaust your powers. He said. You see, there are a lot of people like you, who gain superpowers. Some of them are good, and some are bad. We don't care, our job is to make sure that those people do not reveal a thing, and you committed a crime by using your powers to kill normal men. He said. Think of it as superhero. Police. Those men were evil, they were kidnapping children to cut them up. She quickly began defending herself. That's not the point was someone saw you. We don't care why and how, we only care about being discovered. He explained, your crime is getting seen shooting thunder from your hands. He said. Ah, she finally got it. You are not angry about those men. No, why would I? He shrugged. Now, if you didn't use your powers, I would have let you go after some punishment, but since this case reached the police I have no choice but to proceed according to the protocol, he said. What do you mean? She asked as she tried repeatedly to use her powers to no avail. You have two choices, he said slowly. You can either become my slave and work for me, or I would have to let you go, he said, slashing his neck. Then let me go. She didn't get it. I meant killing you, you idiot. He scolded, making her gasp. You have 5 minutes to think this over, he said as he relaxed in his seat. I will work for you. Then, she lied directly. She planned to betray him as soon as she was able to use her powers. This was thinking that this guy was as dumb as those villains in the comics. Good choice, he said as he took another document that was placed at the side of the table. Sign this. It is a servitude contract, from now on you will work for me. He said. It was a system contract. Fine, she said, can you untie me first? You can already use your hands, he said while smiling, causing her to realize that her hands were truly free, weren't they tied to the chair a moment ago? She quickly tried zapping the young man, but her powers didn't work. Damn it, sign or die, he said coldly as he watched her make stupid movements. I don't have a pen, she said. Use your blood, he replied as she felt a needle prick her finger, it began to bleed. Ouch, she flinched as she looked around, but there was no needle. What happened just now? Sign it, Victor said, pushing the contract forward. Ren hesitated for a second then signed it. She had heard before that minors wouldn't be held responsible for the contracts signed without their parents, so she didn't really read it. She thought she was smart. The moment the contract was signed, it suddenly shone with a strange light and then disappeared. What was that? She asked in shock. A system-abiding contract, of course. If you betray me now, you would die a very gruesome death, think of it like a contract with the devil. He smiled evilly. Now there are some things I would need to explain. What? Ren asked in shock as she felt the ropes around her come loose, she was free to move. Without waiting for a second, and totally ignoring the young man, she ran to the door, it was locked. She turned and tried to throw a thunderbolt at the young man and it worked. However, the thunder dissipated the moment it touched the young man, and from the depth of her soul she felt a pain she had never felt before. Ah! She screamed as she fell to the ground. That's what happens when you attack your master. The young man said coldly as the pain resided. You are now mine, he added as Ren sat up on the floor and began to breathe heavily. You, don't, you, me. Call me young master, he said as she felt the pain attack again. Ah, please stop, young master, she uttered with difficulty making the pain stop. You will be obedient from now on, right? He asked as he watched her relax. She quickly nodded. She never wanted to experience that pain ever again. Say it, call me by my title. Yes, young master, she really learned her place. Good, then follow me, I will drive you home, he said as he opened the door, it was not locked. Ren hesitated then followed him out. I can go alone, she didn't want him to know the location of her house. Idiot, I already know everything about you. Victor scolded, I need to speak to your parents about our contract. He said, he also needed to explain a few things to her after all. My parents? Yes, I will need to make them sign a few papers. They don't know about your powers, do they? No, I didn't tell them, she quickly explained. Please don't hurt them. Don't worry, he said as he guided her through a long corridor toward a glass elevator. She finally realized that they were in a tall building. This place is Horizon Media. It's a media production company I own. From now on you will work as an idol here. This would be your cover, he explained. Cover? She was shocked. Was the idol thing real after all? Yes, it would be a waste not to use a powerful player like you. But you are still too young, so you would need a cover to move freely. He said, you will be like a real superhero with a hidden identity. In the morning you will be a schoolgirl and a famous idol, and at night, you will be a secret agent.